Greetings, fellow Vikings. Another year has dawned, so get around the hearth, for I have my personal list of games for 2024 that you must have played. Some of these titles will test your courage, others your cunning, and a few might even leave a sour taste in your mouth like cheap ale from distant shores. Let's get it started. Let's start with Helldivers 2, a co-op third-person shooter that demands cooperation and punishes lone wolves. In this sequel, you and your companions serve as the Helldivers' elite soldiers tasked with bringing managed democracy to the alien worlds that aren't too pleased about it. Now, what sets this apart? Well, the balance is delicate. Friendly fire is always on, so you must trust your allies to not pull a bullet in your back, except to choose between the various loadouts, stratagems that shape the battlefields, calling in ammo drops, turrets, or vehicles to push back the swarm of alien scum. The enemies themselves are diverse, relentless, and very often overwhelming. The good part about this game is deep co-op gameplay, tension that bonds your team, and strategic thinking is rewarded. The not so good part about it, well, missions might feel a little bit repetitive as there's no grand narrative that drives it on, except for the, grand scale war that is going on, but still the missions are going to repeat themselves. And of course, going in solo is about as much fun as drinking stale mead. Pentiment is a narrative gem from Obsidian Entertainment set in a 16th century Bavarian village. It's less about clashing steel and more about turning parchment pages and unveiling hidden truths. You play as an illustrator caught up in a murder mystery and social upheavals. Each decision you make leaves an impression, both on how people treat you and how the story unfolds. The art style looks like an old manuscript come to life, and the dialogue brims with wit and historical flavor. The good parts about it, it has rich storytelling and a very unique art direction and meaningful choices that shape the decades-spanning narrative. The not so good part about it is little to no combat or action. If you crave battles or bloodshed, you'll be bored. It's slow-paced and demanding patience and a taste for careful reading. Next, we journey to early 20th century Warsaw, where the Thaumaturge merges historical reality with supernatural horror. As a Thaumaturge, you manipulate and command supernatural entities called Salutors, creating fueled by human vices and virtues. This isn't your typical swords and shield fantasy. Instead, think moral ambiguity, delicate negotiations, and powers that let you peer into the psyche of the troubled city folk. Combat is turn-based, strategic, and punishing if you charge in blindly. The narrative embraces the grits and tension of society on the edge. The good parts about this, it has a very distinctive setting, a very complex moral theme, and strategic battles involving your monstrous allies. The not so good part about it is it might drag on a little bit with the pacing, and the atmosphere can feel oppressively heavy. This is no gentle escapism, it is an iron cuff gripping your wrist. We return to the troubled mind of our Celtic warrior in Senua Saga, Hellblade 2. The first Hellblade was lauded for its portrayal of mental health struggles and its intense personal journey. The sequel promises even more depth, grander vistas, more dynamic combat, and richer sound design that immerses you in Senua's tormented mind. Expect every whisper and scream to rattle your soul. Combat? Likely more fluid and challenging than the first one, but still intimate. Every strike of your blade feels personal. The good parts about this, unmatched atmosphere, emotional storytelling, trust me, you will weep and scream and feel the terror. And stunning visuals that blur the line between reality and hallucination. The not so good part about it is possibly very linear and demanding a taste for dark, intro-perspective narrative. If you want light-hearted romps, this is not your feast, friends. Oh, now we sail to the nostalgic shores with the Age of Mythology Retold, a revamped edition of the classic RTS. You command Greek hoplites, Egyptian chariots, and Norse raiders, even mythical beasts like frost giants and minotaurs. Relics are captured, gods are appeased, and armies clash in divine struggles. The remake should bring sharper graphics, better performance, and maybe a few quality of life improvements. The good part about it's timeless strategic gameplay, diverse civilization, and the joy of summoning God's wrath onto your foes. The not so good part about it, it might still feel old school to those who damned modern complexity. The core gameplay remains familiar and may not surprise longtime veterans. This one is a very good one with your Vikings. In Space Marine 2, you don the armor of a genetically enhanced warrior of the Imperium. The Warhammer 40k setting is grim, unrelenting, and drenched in blood of Xenos. Combat revolves around brutal melee strikes, satisfying chainsword kills, and bolter volleys that turn aliens into splattered remains. Story? Minimal. This is about war, glory, and holding the line. The good part about it, it's exhilarating combat, it's faithful to Warhammer 40k fans and its atmosphere, and that cathartic feeling of beating back endless hordes is just fantastic. The not so good part about it, it's slightly repetitive if you crave variety. It's a focused experience of hack, shoot, and repeat. Non-Warhammer fans might tire quickly of the endless carnage. But still, a fantastic game for the Emperor Mighty Vikings, who is also a fellow warrior of the Empire. Let me know in the comments down below. Up next, it will become a little bit more cold. Frostpunk 2 returns to us to a world with colder than a Jotun's heart. Civilizations clings to survival in a freezing wasteland, and you, as the leader, must make horrific choices to keep your people alive. The sequel will challenge your moral compass even harder, introducing new resources, city management layers, and competing factions within your frozen settlements. You can expect improved UI, deeper political intrigue, and new dilemmas that make you question your humanity. The good parts about it, the strategic gameplay, the moral complexity of decision-making, and an atmosphere that grips you like an icy chain. The not so good part about it, the punishing difficulty can frustrate the weak-willed. Those who dislike making harsh calls, sacrificing comfort, health, or even lives might find it too grim to play. Now buckle up, my dear Vikings, for this is my personal game of the year. Drova Forsaken Kin is a dark pixel art RPG that feels like wandering into the old Germanic forest at twilight. It mixes open exploration with narrative depth. You'll find handcrafted quests, factions to appease or antagonize, enemies that do not forgive mistakes. Combat leans into tactical in the unforgiving. The world is no theme park. Its rugged wilderness demanding respect. And it is heavily inspired by the old Gothic games. The good parts about its rich lore, a world that rewards curiosity, and an old-school charm that calls to those who long for detailed, handcrafted experience. The not-so-good part about it may lack polish compared to big-budget titles, and the difficulty and obtuse direction might frustrate those who prefer clear guidance. The next one is kind of fresh out of the oven, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. We switch gears to a pulp adventure of tombs and mystery. Expect puzzle solving, artifact hunting, and lighthearted tone. While details are scarce, we're hoping for narrative-driven escapades across the globe. Cunning traps and lost temples and nods to classic cinema. And from everybody of my friends, and me included, trying out this game, this feels like a love letter to the whole indie saga. Good parts about it, likely fun exploration, puzzle depth, and the nostalgic thrill of outsmarting ancient traps. The not so good part is it could lean heavily on nostalgia, and if puzzles and story aren't your meat, it may not keep you interested. Also a fresh hot potato is Stalker 2. You're entering a contaminated exclusive zone around Chernobyl, teeming with mutants, anomalies, and ruthless bandits. The atmosphere is thick, oppressive, and deeply immersive. Expect dynamic weather, emergent storytelling, and first-person shooting that punishes recklessness. A rich arsenal of weapons, scarce resources, and a world that feels alive yet deadly at every turn. The good parts about this game is immersive survival brings from all ends, branching narrative paths as well, an intense atmosphere. Every decision counts, every bullet is precious. The not so good parts about it's potential technical woes, buggy launch, and a steep difficulty curve. This game won't hold your hand, and it might break it instead. Lastly, my dear Vikings, I have some honorable mentions for games that released this year but are in early access, and I don't count as a full game yet. First up, we have Enshrouded, a survival action RPG mixed with buildings, exploration, and combat. It's still unfinished steel, but you can already craft shelters, face monstrous threats, and shape the shared world with friends. It could evolve into a grand longhouse of possibilities, or collapse if the developers stray. Early access means its form changes like a shifting tide. Path of Exile 2 is also just fresh from the smithy, and it's gleaming hot. It's a sequel to the legendary ARPG, bringing new skill gems, weapon types, and a refined endgame. Currently still forging its identity, Path of Exile 2 teases deeper complexity and brutal difficulty. If you love tinkering with character builds, like a blacksmith with his forge, keep your eyes on the progress. But no, it is still a glowing blade on the anvil, but still, already in its early shoes. Way more content, way more diversity, way better lore, and in-depth systems than we got for titles like Diablo 4 plus DLC. And last but not least, Manor Lords, the most anticipated city builder, at least from my point of view. Manor Lords is a medieval city builder that promises realistic economy, tactical battles, and unprecedented detail. Right now, it's a half-finished fortress, sturdy foundation, but incomplete ramparts. If you love city building and shaping the destiny of your townsfolk, Manor Lords is worth watching, and it hones itself into a sharpened sword. And there we have it, Vikings, a trove of games spread before us like plundered treasures. Some focus on story, others on survival, many test our skills in battle. The key is to choose wisely, and just as a chieftain, pick the right warriors for the raid. Which of these will you set your sights on? Which will be worthy of your gold and your time? And which will be cast aside like a rusted blade? Let me know below what fires your blood and what chills your bones. Until your next gathering, keep your axes honed and your minds keen, and make your voyages, digital or otherwise, bring glory and tales worth singing.